Hi everyone, I'm Stan Mallow, the Paranormal Yakker. My guest in today's show is ET experiencer and UFO researcher Ella LeBain, author of the six-part series Who's Who in the Cosmic Zoo. I'll be talking with Ella about the expanded and revised fourth edition of Book One in the series. Ella LeBain, welcome to Paranormal Yakker.
It's good to see you, Stan. Thank you for having me.
Who else, the ancient gods, ETs and angels that are expected to return to Earth, and why now?
I think I sort of answered some of that question about the return. I think that just to recap, the Anunnaki, we'll call them Nibiruans, or because they're coming with Nibiru. And then, of course, Yeshua, who promised to return at the end of the age. That age is an astronomical precessional age of Pisces, which the precessional ages last 2,160 years. They've messed with the calendars so many times. Like I always say, it's like the Chicago song. Does anybody really know what time it is? Because they've not only messed with the calendars, they've messed with the timelines. And now time is shortening because the Earth has shifted. And every time we get these 9 earthquakes, like what happened in Chile in 2004, it knocked the Earth off the axis, which basically reduced the day by 40 seconds or 50 seconds or something like that. And so time is shortening. Why do we have to make up, with our leap year? It's all messed up. It's really hard to pinpoint dates about this because things are happening quicker and it's accelerating. We're getting closer to it. And I have published this based on these pieces of astronomy and the planet and Nibiru, which was also called Hercules by the ancient Greeks. And then they renamed it in 2017. The Chilean astronomers called it TRAPPIST-1 because they named it after their telescope. But it's pretty much the same ancient planetary system that's attached to our solar system in a way that it every now and then interlopes and intersects. And that's what we're seeing around the sun. I think that the beings that belong to that system, they have an appointment, like I said, on Earth. And Yeshua. Now, I had this near-death experience in 2010. I don't know if I told you this last time we talked, but I was kind of given, it was like a download in a way. And that's how this first book came about. That was 2 years before it got published, which was 2012. And I was just writing about the aliens, like I was telling you from my classes, ETs, aliens, or angels. And Yeshua, I saw my mother, my father, who are both deceased. And I thought, oh my God, I must be dead. And then this hand took me, and here he was again, the same man I saw in the Negev desert in 1979. And he just walked with me. It was almost like he was my real father. I felt this like old ancient connection with him. And he just walked with me. It was just him and I on this bright green field, bluebird sky. That's it, just him and I. And he was telling me stuff. And he said, oh, I want you to rewrite your book with me in it. So I did. It's kind of a little, for someone, like I was excommunicated from my Jewish family for even entertaining Jesus. But I don't call him Jesus. His name is Yeshua. That was a name that came in the 1700s. I'm concerned more about who he was and who he is now, not all the stuff that they put upon him that really isn't true. And that's the stuff he showed me that I have unpacked. And it's turned into this 6-book series. He's in all the books. And he is a big part of the prophecy because everyone is waiting for their Mahdi, their Messiah. And the Zohar, which is the commentary for the Torah, and it's in the Torah too, talks about the messianic red star. And that fascinated me because they said, well, when you see that, that's how we know that the Messiah is coming. And it's like, could that be Nibiru? That's the dot I connected in my 5th book about Nibiru because it's red. Nibiru is red. A lot of that's another controversy about, is it blue or is it red? But I proved that it's red because all the ancient texts basically said it was red, and they depicted it in pictures that is written on stone, the big red disc that's in ancient Egypt with the wings. It's also in Persia, which is today's Iran. The Chinese called it the red dragon. So he told me that he was returning with Nibiru. When I heard that, that's what kind of spawned me, inspired me to gather all this material and publish these books, because I thought there must be something to this, more than just what one particular religion or group is saying. I wanted to see what everyone was saying and see what was the common denominator there. What do they all have in common? And that seems to be the belief in a Messiah, and also the expectation for this system to return to earth.
Alien disclosure, full alien disclosure when it comes, is sure to have an impact on religions. You address that in your book. How do you feel full alien disclosure will affect religious leaders of various denominations and the worshipers who practice those religions?
Wow, big. That's a huge question. Great question. So my fourth book is all about that. It was my exploration on how the religions would react and respond to the alien reveal, disclosure. And I used this university study. This professor had done this and basically came up in a nutshell that out of all the religions, Christianity was going to have the hardest time. And the reason for that is because the Bible was edited by the Church of Rome, and the Church of Rome has withheld Jewish texts. Basically, the reason that Christians can't understand, or they think everything is all demonic. They think it's all aliens are demons. I hear this almost on a daily basis. I stand in the middle because some aliens are demons for sure, but not all are. And I have this problem when people broad brush, because it creates bigotries and prejudices and it closes your mind. So that's where I'm coming from to unpack all this. So Christians think that because they're only given one piece of the story. So when you have a half truth, you got to be careful what's the other half, because it's a lie. And one of the great commissions of Christianity is to share the good news of the Messiah. That's it. It's not anything we do. It's the fact that there's grace, there's redemption, there's deliverance. And here we are talking in the middle of the days of awe, the 10 days of awe in Judaism, where it's a time where Jews believe that the heavens open up. It's an cosmological, astrological influence where God is listening to our prayers, to our hearts, and whether Jews get forgiven and then added to the book of life for another year. Well, in Christianity, obviously they don't believe that, but they believe that what Yeshua did on the cross was all they need. Suffice to say, the connection is grace. It's the grace to be redeemed. It's the grace to be delivered. I find it really interesting that the Machzor, which is the Jewish book that everyone reads out of from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, and has the Kol Nidre prayers, which is the most important prayer in Judaism of the year, which is the prayers to seek God for forgiveness. And I read it in English and Hebrew, has the name Yeshua multiple times throughout the entire chant, song, and everything. But Jews don't believe that is Jesus. That's something that's going to get resolved at the end of this age. Like who really, like, it's like that old, will the real Messiah please stand up? Like that old TV show from the 60s. So that's a piece. And then the other piece has to do with the fact that all the other religions have aliens, gods, extraterrestrials in their theology. So like Hindus are like, no problem, bring it on, because they already believe in a million different gods. The same thing with like Judaism and Islam kind of comes out of the Catholic Church. The Church of Rome sort of helped them create Islam. And I have that in book 4. That's like historical, how the Pope wanted to use Muhammad. I mean, this might be very controversial for some people. I don't know what your audience is, but this is the history that the Pope wanted to use Muhammad because he came from a warrior caste to take Jerusalem. And he sent the monks to help him. The monks were scribes. They knew how to write. Muhammad was illiterate. He didn't write. So everything was written for him. And a new religion came out of that. But when when they did succeed, they betrayed the Pope. They didn't give it to the Pope, and they kept it for themselves. So these are ancient battles, suffice to say, over, again, the portal of Jerusalem. So who gets to win it? For a time, you think, oh, that guy's winning because they're holding on to it. And our history is so rich with how many conquerors and kings came and shut the walls. Do they really think that bricks are going to stop the Messiah from coming through those walls? When we're talking supernatural and this is like physical, I think that besides Christians, Muslims might have some issue. I don't think Jews have a major problem because it's in our ancient theologies, okay? And also the great rejected Jewish texts have this history of extraterrestrials coming to the planet, which is the reason why the Church of Rome suppressed all that. They didn't want people to know this. For millennia, Jews have suffered and fought to hold on to ancient knowledge because that was what they were chosen and commissioned to do from Atlantis. So I think that and I've written this in book 1, that the ancient Jewish race, goes way back. They were Huvits, and which could also explain why they're always persecuted, not just because of their religion, but because the beings that live on this planet are so threatened by them, they want to wipe the seed off the planet. I mean, what was the purpose of the Holocaust? It was genocide. They say never again, but the prophecy says something like that is going to happen again. And when they rebuild this third temple, this counterfeit Messiah, which we call the Antichrist, comes in through somehow the Church of Rome because they're a big major player in this end time prophecy. So the book of Revelation identifies them by location. The church is always in biblical speak referred to as some kind of a woman. So you're either the virgin, which is the good, the pure church, or you're the whore. So the whore of Babylon is Revelation 17 talks about that sits on 7 hills, which is Rome. There's some like kind of viral thing going on like through TikTok and internet right now. Everybody's like got this meme talking about like how many times a day do you think about the Roman Empire? Like my daughter, who's 23, she says, well, how many times a day do you think about the Roman Empire? I was like, pretty much daily. Because I'm like writing about it all the time and exposing it. But why is that? Because something is coming out from today's Vatican. And this is not like, and you can't make this stuff up. The fact that they want to lead alien disclosure. They have these 2 of the world's most sophisticated telescopes that they named Lucifer. One sits on Vatican Hill, the other one sits on Mount Graham in Tucson, Arizona. They have these Jesuit priests, astronomer priests, who are in charge of them. And what are they tracking? They're tracking aliens and Nibiru because they want to be the point of contact when they arrive, because they want to be the ones to control this. So you can't make this stuff up, Stan. I mean, this is what it says. So I think that, and here's another piece. And when I looked at this and I'm like, wow, out of all the religions you think they want to baptize aliens? They actually wrote a book. These 2 Jesuit priests wrote a book, How Would You Baptize an Alien? And then, of course, the Pope, today's Pope, Francis, has said, yes, we're ready to baptize aliens. But before they baptize aliens, the aliens have to repent, because that's what happens during baptisms. So they skipped over that part.
Should viewers of Paranormal Yacker want to buy the expanded and revised 4th edition of Who's Who in the Cosmic Zoo, Book 1, A Spiritual Guide to ETs, Aliens, Gods, and Angels, or any of the other books in the series, how can they do that?
Well, thank you, Stan. You can go to my website, who's who in the cosmiczoo.com, or I'm on Amazon in worldwide channels. The books, all 5 books are available right now in Kindle and paperback. And I think if you have the audio subscription, you can probably get that on, I know book 2 you can get on audio.
Hi, everyone. This is Stan Mallow, the Paranormal Yacker. I hope you enjoyed the interview you just watched. So that you don't miss any upcoming shows, be sure to subscribe to my free YouTube channel. To do that, just press the subscribe button on your screen. I very much appreciate your support of my channel, and thank you for subscribing to it.